Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Together, Jake and his friends interview talents varying from actors, directors, writers, producers, composers, puppeteers, and so much more. Who will they be chatting with today? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chris Bixby, and with me today is our other co-host, Wyatt, and our host, Jake Deffinbaugh. How are you guys?
Really great.
Wow, doing great. How about you?
Very good. Very good.
Chris, who we have today?
Very good.
Here, also, our co-host Matt, he's going to be joining later.
Yeah, Matt will do it later. Chris, who we have today?
Yeah, so today, very excited. So as I've mentioned in a couple interviews, we've had a few interviews with guests that I've interviewed on the DJ Bob show a couple years ago when I was on. And we have another one here with us today. He is an artist and illustrator. He was the art director on a very well-known Playhouse Disney series called Stanley.
Yeah.
And he's worked on other shows such as Disney's Doug and PB&J Otter and JoJo Circus, a whole bunch of other shows. He's worked on, you know, different cereal commercials, just a lot of great stuff. And
so much
here he is, Pat Giles. Pat, how are you?
I'm really, really good, Chris. It's really great to be here.
Yeah,
there you go.
And
Awesome.
Great to meet Jake and Wyatt too. Really
Yeah.
good.
Thank you. Great to meet you too.
So to start this off, so we know who you are, but for those who don't, can you tell a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I'm an animator, cartoonist, and as you mentioned, was the art director on Stanley. But I also was the design supervisor on Daria, which was really fun. And then
Nice.
Codename Kids Next Door I worked on
Yes.
for a while. I worked on Sheep in the Big City for a season. I kind of hopped around New York shows, and then somebody, a friend of mine, was working on Cocoa Pops commercials, and he said, "Hey, do you want to meet the guy that created the Honey Nut Cheerios bee?" And I said, "Yeah, I would love that." And it turned out it was just lunch, and I didn't realize that it was an interview. And about 2 months later, I got a call, and they said, "Hey, kid," I was like in my 30s, but they were like, "Hey, kid, you want to come in? We want to interview you." And it was the guy that was the creative director for all of the General Mills animated commercials since the late 60s was retiring.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And they were
Oh
looking to replace him. And it was almost like the Dread Pirate Roberts, like, "Are you kidding me? Do I get that job?" And I might even have one of them. I had this set of Beanie Babies were sitting on the windowsill.
Nice.
And I was like, what are those there for? And Dave Shea, who was my boss, who was the guy that hired me, said, "Oh, well, that's what you're working on." And face just dropped, and it was Honey Nut Cheerios Buzz, the Green Giant, the Pillsbury Doughboy, Lucky the Leprechaun, the Trix Rabbit, the Count Chocula, Sonny the Cuckoo Bird, Frankenberry, Lucky the Leprechaun, Boo Berry, but then also it was Captain Honeystar in England and Europe, and Cookie Crisp. And
Oh yeah,
I remember that.
And so I did that for 10 years. And so all the commercials that you probably saw between 2004 and about 2014 were probably mine. At least if they were those cereals. And Go-Gurt, like all of the slurp till you flat and slurp till it's flat. But not beyond that, that was me and my team. A guy, Dave Herman, wrote that line, and then we got Sergio Aragonis to do the designs, and we animated those, like the little kind of green ones. I don't know if you can cut commercials in here, but I might some commercials to cut in. And then I worked for Hasbro for a while, and
nice.
But then also created the only the very first fully animated rock concert for Frank Zappa, The Bizarre World of Frank Zappa. Produced that, and
Oh, that's cool.
Lillian Tordo's Opposite Show on Sesame Workshop. So lots of preschool stuff for sure.
Wow.
And then so recently I've been with Holler, and so we've got like 160 animated shorts that we have been releasing all year, and we're really excited. We're doing 2 new series, also 2 new preschool series that I have not announced publicly anywhere but here yet. I haven't even mentioned that yet anywhere, so you guys could possibly get a preview.
That's awesome. I know our family will look forward to that as well.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So sorry for the long intro, but that's gray hair, a bunch of stuff.
No worries.
Hey, it's fine. It's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It's fine.
It's okay.
Long interest accepted.
yes, definitely.
So,
Definitely.
anyway, so can you talk about your background and how you grew up?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, what's funny is like I grew up in Brooklyn, and
Nice.
and I knew that I wanted to draw, I think, before I really even knew how to walk. Like I was about 3 years old when I would just start filling books with drawings.
Yeah.
And then I always knew that I wanted to be an artist or a cartoonist, and it always got me out of trouble. And then I went to art school, and but when I came out of art school, I was designing a lot of like t-shirts and stuff for clothing companies. And that's how I got into licensed characters, and then finally like put my resume together and sent a comic book that I was working on to Jumbo Pictures, where I got a job working on Doug, drawing
Yes.
Yeah. Good show.
Whaleman comics. Like it was the coolest job, you know?
Mhm.
And so from there, like that kind of changed my life after that, because then now I was like a Disney artist officially, you know? And so
Yeah.
it's really fun. And then after Doug wrapped, they were already working on PB&J Otter. And so I got
Nice.
transferred over to the PB&J Otter show. And then I was doing like character designs, prop designs, background designs. And then after PB&J Otter, then I left to go to Daria. But by this time, I guess it was about maybe like 2000. And what was really exciting was I was walking to work one day, and it was on Doug, and Doug was on one Saturday morning, and I was just a total cartoon nerd when I was a kid, and just loved cartoons more than anything. And Saturday morning was like more of a religious day than Sunday was for me. I just like Saturday morning lineup of all the networks was just the greatest, you know, thing. And to know that I was working on a Saturday morning show was like, I made it. And that was probably one of the biggest, best moments of my life. And then, or at least career wise. And then when I worked for Saatchi and Saatchi had the General Mills account, and a guy there that created the Honey Nut Cheerios bee, you know, Jacques Dufour, was just an amazing guy to meet. And it was just thrilling to see how, you know, how a commercial was made, you know, how the art direction and storyboarding of a commercial was very, very different than storyboarding for longer form. You had a whole story that you had to get done in 30 seconds, and a lot of business to get done in 30 seconds. So it really changed my like way of thinking about storytelling. And what's interesting is that now, you know, 20-minute shows are just too long. So I feel really well suited to be in the short form now, because you know, for doing so many commercials over the years. My favorite commercials to do to write were Cocoa Puffs.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
You know, those were basically I love this cereal so much, you have to keep it away from me. And all of them were situations that were like, what ridiculous kind of like trap could you put him into? And one day I was I got the assignment to write one of these, and I was walking around the office banging my head against the wall. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go for a walk. And I went out and I got in the elevator, and I was on the 16th floor at that time, and it was like by the 14th floor I knew, oh my god, this is it, he should be trapped in an elevator. And it was like, to keep me from going for Cocoa Pops,
That's awesome.
I'm up and down this elevator all day. and that was the commercial. And I don't know if you guys remember that, but that ran for a very long time.
I think I do. Yeah.
I think I do.
Yeah.
And those were my favorite thing to do, is find how can you possibly trap him, in something that is kind of either boring or fun or funny. Like one was the last one that I think that I worked on. Yeah, it was the last one that I worked on was Shea Chocolat, and his grandfather brings him. Gramps takes him to a really fancy restaurant, and they have to be really, really quiet, so it was that was super fun. But that, I don't even know, Chris, if I answered your question, but that's just a little background. Oh, and I'm married to Amy Giles, who's a young adult author, and we have two
Nice.
Congratulations.
daughters.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, her book Now Is Everything I could get a shameless plug in for Now Is Everything, and That Night are two of her critically acclaimed books. She's working on 3 and 4 now, which is exciting.
Oh, that's really exciting. Yes.
Oh wow,
That's
nice.
awesome.
Links to those will be in the description for those tuning in.
Yeah. So also forgot to. So since you also mentioned PB&J Otter, what was it like for that show very soon going to be on Disney Plus?
Yeah, what's up? Did you know about that? Is the question first?
I'm so psyched. I think I saw it on Facebook from you guys. Like,
wow.
It's one of you. Wow. Somebody on Facebook posted it. It was either Bob or Chris, and I was so psyched to see that, because also Bear in the Big Blue House is coming out.
Yeah.
And I've worked
Amazing
a bunch
show
with
as well.
Noel McNeil. He's such a
Amazing
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was the monster in Frank Zappa's Hologram tour, in the concert that we produced. He and 2 other puppeteers were a giant monster that we did. And so PB&J was really funny because I was still working on Doug, and the first season was basically being produced like on the other side of the floor, and by a different team. And but they had already gone through design, and they were pretty much like had animation all the way from most of the first first episodes were pretty animated. And then they got into a thing where they had to change the background in the noodle dance.
Oh wow!
But they had the prop designer had already left, had already been wrapped. And so because I was props on Doug, they were like, oh my God, so I got to do all of the pattern behind them on the noodle dance is mine. And so I was psyched because I wasn't officially credited on season 1, but the noodle dance pretty much for the whole series was mine. And then it's funny because I had gone to art school and had been a working artist for 5 or 6 years before getting a job at Jumbo. But was really interesting about it was that I was the worst artist, that they were all so good. And I don't say that I didn't think I was bad, but I was the worst one in the room, because everybody around me was like, the guy sitting next to me was Prentice Rollins, who's an inker for DC, and
nice.
Read his book, How to Build a Graphic Novel. That's him. The guy's just insanely good. And then Mike Foran was behind me, and Mike Foran directed Gotham Girls later on. And then the guy behind me was Martin Wittig, who was on Cuphead. and like
nice.
and then Miguel Martinez Hopre, who now I think is a director on Blaze and the Monster Machines. And so I was just surrounded by Fariba Adams, who's just an incredible artist. And then the other row was Chris McCulloch or Jackson Public, who created Venture Brothers, Bill Pressing and Enrico Casarosa from Pixar, Matt Peters, who just directed the Sons of Super Sons, I think, like the Batman's kid and Superman's kid save the world or get into a fight.
Oh, wow.
That just came out. But those were the people that were like around me. And I got to learn from them. And Jonathan Royce was my boss. And recently, now Jonathan's on my team now, which is kind of cool. But Jonathan and I later then created Lily and Tortoise Opposite show together. But Jonathan, like after, basically 10 years of training, like took one of my drawings during the audition, like you had to like do a drawing test, by the way, to get on the show.
Oh, that's cool.
And like took one of my drawings and like flipped it on a light box and just completely showed how all of my drawings were physically wrong. Like they just weren't done correctly. And nobody had done that so easily for me before. Somebody might be able to go, oh, like this seems a little bit off, but he just was able to deconstruct it so meticulously, so quickly. And I was like, oh God, I have so much to learn. And then I absorbed that then for years. And so what it made me realize, like, you always want to be, you never want to be the best person in the room. You want to, you want to be with other people who are really strong at what, you like to do, and so that you can learn from each other. And so that was PB&J Otter for me. Then by the time I got to PB&J Otter after a season of Doug, I felt like really, trained, like I had made more progress maybe in that 1 year than the 20 years before, and I was only 30. So that, and PB&J Otter was amazing because that's where I did get to start to work on backgrounds, and those backgrounds were magnificent. They were by, the team was led by Freya Tanz, who was the background supervisor for Beavis and Butthead.
Oh,
And,
nice. I know that show.
She did the original Beavis and Butthead movie. She built the Hoover Dam backgrounds and stuff. And she was just magnificent. And so learning from her was really great. And it was a very happy place. We had a penthouse studio on Spring Street and 6th Avenue in Manhattan. It had just a beautiful 360 view because it was like in the West Village, and so it was the tallest building in the neighborhood, like on the 20th floor. Everything else was very low buildings. We had an amazing view of the Twin Towers, which I'll tell a little bit more of that story in a bit, but Jim Jenkins and David Campbell redecorated the office to feel like you were in a cartoon set. So there was there was kind of a fake living room with big giant fun chairs and painted as if you were on a cartoon set with cartoon antlers and stuff, and then a huge back deck where you could go out and play hacky sack on breaks and stuff, and it was just a really joyous, fun place, and so many people came through there, like Otis Brayboy and Dave Concepcion. Dave worked a lot on Dora the Explorer.
Oh, nice!
Wow,
Amazing
great show.
And just the folks that came through those walls were incredible. Kevin Lofton was was storyboards on Doug, but then he was on Little Bill at Nickelodeon.
Oh, nice.
Mike Lipinski was there, and then he was at Blue's Clues after that.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So many.
The
cast of artists were really just amazing, and so we then were able to successfully, we were a Disney studio, but then we were successfully able to move from that studio up to Sesame Workshop in August of 2001. And what happened was, after PB&J Otter, our contract ended with Disney, and they had like, I guess, a 5-year contract to do Doug and a Doug movie, which was great.
Yeah, Doug's
And
first
then-
movie.
Yes.
And then PB&J Otter, and they also did a show called Sports Bender, I think, with Disney. And then Stanley.
Yes.
And I had left at that point at the end of PB&J Otter. I went and did at Curious Pictures Sheep in the Big City, and then went up to Daria. And then after Daria was ending, it was really funny because MTV Animation in those days, someone in the accounting department figured out that if we put a bunch of teenagers in a camper with some video cameras and send them across country, we have road rules, and it's super successful and super cheap and low production costs. And they looked at how much Daria was costing per episode, like $350,000-$400,000 per episode, and they said, screw this, and shut down MTV Animation. And so luckily for me, Melanie Grisanti was the executive producer of Stanley, and she called me, and I was so excited because Nash Dunnigan, who directed he was either the art director or director of the Charlie Brown movie up at Blue Sky. He was supposed to be the art director of Doug, and he left to go to another company, and Miguel Martinez Jafre, who also left to go to another company. And so they called me and they were like, "Hey, are you ready? Are you done with Daria?" And I was like, "Oh my God." So I was so psyched. And then suddenly now I was back at I was now not at Jumbo, but I was at now Cartoon Pizza.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Pizza was basically the same company, but now we were not owned by Disney. Disney was our first client. And so we gave up that lease August 2001, moved up to a co-production with Sesame Workshop. And it was the weekend of September 11th, we were on hiatus, that we were like, we had moved out, I guess, like first week of September, and we were on a 2-week hiatus. And that's when 9/11 happened. And we then were on, and Stanley, not many people know this, but the network had asked, well, we're going to put you on season 2 as soon as we air it once on September 15th, 2001, like was the fall premiere of the show. And I guess the ratings were really, really good because parents were hiding kids at the Disney Channel that day. And apparently in subsequent weeks also, the news in those days was only about 9/11 for weeks. I mean, it just was
Right.
very intense. And no one was paying attention to the ratings. And so we were put on hold. Our hiatus was extended, and Disney closed the theme parks. And for the first time, Disney closed the theme parks. It was really a terrible drag on the stock, and it really hurt the company. And so the stress through the company was just horrible. And in October, a client from the Disney Channel then died of a heart attack from the stress of it. And so our hiatus was extended even further. And then finally, somebody I worked on with Elisa Clayman, who very sadly passed away in the last 2 years.
Oh, that sucks.
But she and I built a cell, like an animation cell of Stanley, to send to executives for Christmas, to like remind them that, hey, Stanley's here. and they were like, "Oh my God, we forgot about Stanley." And it was like, "It's a huge hit. You got to get a second season." And so we rushed back late December and reassembled the team that now had been out of work for like 3-4 months. And we successfully got season 2 and 3 greenlit, and they were so much fun. And then we did two direct-to-video movies, Stanley's Dinosaur Roundup, and the Great Big Book of Everything movie that I've never seen it. I don't think they released it as a standalone. I think they released it as episodes, but I think they only aired once, and then that was it. So I would love to see the Great Big Book of Everything movie, and I'm really, really hoping. I'm happy that PB&J Otter is going to be on Disney Plus, but I'm really looking forward to Stanley. I'm hoping will.
I do as well.
I hope so too.
It was on Disney Junior. It was on.
Yeah, it was
recently, and so hopefully they will bring it back. But that was then really, really big. I just loved working on that show. And then, as I said, then I kind of moved into advertising in about 2004. And by 2005, my drawings were on the cover of Count Chocula, Blueberry, and Frankenberry. And for a kid like me, that was just like the big time. I had, might as well. I was like I was playing for the Knicks. I just felt so proud of that job. And I still love the monsters a lot.
Definitely. So now, kind of going back to the beginning. So how did you first get into illustrating and art?
Yeah. So like I said, I never wasn't. So I always knew that that's what I was going to do. So I went to first to School of Visual Arts after high school. I had a really great art teacher in high school in upstate New York, a guy named Doug McGuire, who was very, very encouraging. So I had a great high school art teacher. And then
that's awesome.
When I went into college, I went to SVA, and then I ran out of money after a year and a half, and I said, okay, I'm going to go to SUNY Purchase, which was a lot cheaper and was more fun. And I got a drawing and painting degree there. And then when I got out of there, I started, during college, when I was still at SVA, a woman introduced me to a clothing company. I got a messenger job at a company that now is called Kids Headquarters. Now they're like the biggest kid clothing company in the world, but in those days they were called Wear Me Apparel. And
nice.
I was sitting in the art department all the time, waiting to do messenger runs. And the art director said, "Hey, you know how to draw? Why don't you draw some stuff?" And so then I started to do T-shirts, and I would sell them to them for freelance for my dorm room up at Purchase after I quit my messenger job. And so I was working artist pretty much right from like school, And in those days, it was weird to remote work. I would FedEx drawings in a tube from my dorm room into the city, and they would pay me like $50 a drawing, and I would do a bunch. And then when I got out, I went back to that company every summer to work with them. And then when I got out of school, they said, you should get an agent. And so a friend of mine there referred me to a company called London Connection, and I now had like a textile agent. And what they would do is they would take my drawings and go out to all kinds of different apparel companies like OP or Jimmy Z or kind of surf companies and stuff. And then I did that for several years, and then at a certain point it turned into like licensed characters. This was the early 90s, and Disney just really started to get their, I mean, they always were masters at licensing, but they really, really started to pull it together in the early 90s, especially around like Lion King. I actually designed Hunchback of Notre Dame pajamas, which,
nice.
Wow.
which was
That's
pretty,
cool.
Wow.
which was pretty fun and kind of strange because it is, I don't know if it's a good, I don't know if it's a great Disney movie or not. It didn't sell a lot of merchandise. It was somewhat of a counterintuitive kind of plot and look and feel and stuff for like this very gothic, French novel about, kind of an anti-hero for sure, but and for kids' pajamas, it didn't necessarily translate too well. And when I went out to go to Disney, it was really thrilling. I got to see early storyboards of the film and early pencil tests, and it was my first like walking into the Disney Channel building on Alameda out there, and it's where like consumer products were. It's very corporate, but it was like, here I am, and I'm in Disney. Like, this was crazy. And my boss, when they showed the kind of musical scene with Tom Hulse as Hunchback, my
Quasimodo.
kind of kicked me in the leg, was like, I'm not going to sell any pajamas with this thing. It was very fun. I was like, no, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And at that point, Pocahontas was just coming out, and Lion King obviously was the biggest hit in the world. And Disney was really confident that Hunchback of Notre Dame was going to be a giant hit. They thought it was going to be a huge hit. And a young woman who was the account woman, I want to say her name was Jane, but I can't remember. She said, hey, I have this coolest thing I want to show you in my office. You would really appreciate it. And she puts in a VHS into her, deck in her office, and plays me the Toy Story trailer.
Oh, wow.
It was like a year before anybody had seen anything at all. And I went, oh my God. When you think about in your life the first time you saw the trailer for Toy Story, when he jumps on the car and does it just was like nothing I had ever seen before at all. And I said, oh my God, who's that? It's not really us. It's this company up in San Francisco that we funded it. We're going to distribute it, but it's not really a Disney animation. They're called Pixar, and but we're going to distribute it. We're feeling really good about it, but I thought you would like it. We're releasing it at Christmas. It's not going to be like Thanksgiving. Because at that time summer really was the focus, and I said, well, who's got that account? And they were like, well, your competitor in Chicago. And I was like, no, that's going to be the hit. And we all knew, kind of driving away that day, that we were like, oh man, I think we got the wrong movie. And it was true, because the merchandise for Toy Story that year, oh my God, just like flew off the shelves.
I know, I've seen some of the stuff online about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there was video games for the SNES and all that.
Yeah.
So getting into that field, who were some of your inspirations?
So
those fields?
I was a very, very big Marvel Comics fan, and truth be
I am as well.
I really wanted to be a Marvel Comics artist. Like that was my real goal. And I feel like my style was really more naturally Hanna-Barbera. Like I did that, like my hand was kind of better at that, like kind of funny cartooning than superhero cartooning, though I loved it and I tried. But it just always seemed like it just was such a hard business to get into, but those guys were huge influences. John Byrne, Jack Kirby, Sal Buscema, John Buscema. I just, really, really loved Marvel. And I was also a huge Hanna-Barbera and Looney Tunes fan. And I loved Maurice Noble, who was the background artist for Chuck Jones. I just like all of that stuff. And Mary Blair is one of my favorite artists. She's the artist that designed It's a Small World, that ride.
Oh, nice.
Just her sense of color and shape was always very inspiring. And so other influences were, let's say, then, sorry for the pause, but I'm trying to give a thoughtful answer.
That's
a lot of in the 90s, like let's say in the 90s, a lot of kind of slice of life comic artists like Peter Baggy, and I loved that kind of stuff. And then, once I got to work for Disney, it was my coworkers that were my influences. It was really amazing to just watch, people like Wyatt and Siobhan Mullen, who was a storyboard artist on Doug, and Diane Credenzer, who was the head of story for Stanley, is now like Moon and Ollie. I don't know if you know Moon and Ollie.
Yeah, I think so.
That's her. So those would be some of my, I guess, influences. I loved Rankin Bass too when I was a kid.
Definitely.
Oh
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. In addition to work with Disney, you mentioned earlier you did some work with Sesame Workshop. What was that like?
So that was really fun. Again, Melanie Grisanti was the producer of Stanley. She then was over at Sesame Workshop as the head of production, and they were doing a series of shorts on Sesame Studios, their YouTube channel. And so she called and said, hey, would you be interested in pitching some stuff for the shorts channel? And it was really like a incubator, we think, for HBO Max. Esme and Roy came out of all that. And then so me and Jonathan Royce, who worked at he was my boss on Doug, and we kicked around a couple of ideas, and he had showed me he does these little felt sculptures. It's actually, I've got one right here. It was this felt sculpture that he showed me. We were having lunch in Canada.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice. That's awesome.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
And I said, Jonathan, why aren't you doing something with that? Like, you really, really should do something with that. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I just make them. I don't really know what to do with them. And so I asked him if he minded if we, could we collaborate on something? And so we did a little purple dog character and a turtle, and they did an ABC song. And then they said, Sesame Workshop were like, that's great, we'll do that. Just they wanted just like a one-off. And my buddies at Endless Noise did the score. And so we were off to the races, and it did really, really well. And then they said, well, we really like these characters. We'd love for you to do something else with them. And then we agonized over what do we do? And we finally came up with the Lillian Tordo's Opposite Show. And every episode is an illustration of opposites, like fast and slow, big and small. And it's funny because there were things, we originally called it This and That. We wanted it to be Tina and Tay in This and That. And they were like, well, technically This and That are not opposites. because you could have this and that, and they're the so you can have two apples, and it's this apple and that apple. But so we settled on Opposite Show, and it's up to 25 million views now on YouTube, which is really exciting.
Wow.
Oh my
So
gosh.
kids it really resonated. We only did 9 episodes, so with the ABC song, like 10 episodes, and we would do like, you know, up and down, and it was really interesting because it was hard to write stories sometimes because not everything were truly opposites, and then also we wanted to do tall and short and tall, and they said no, because short was kind of a negative. You know, if you say to somebody that they're short, you know, that it had a negative connotation, maybe, you know. And so I'm so proud of those, and it was really thrilling to work with the Sesame Workshop kind of system where they really spend a lot of time making sure that these have curriculum value for kids, you know, that they have a real value underneath them, that they are nutritious and you know, have something that a kid can learn from, or gain some insight about a concept. And so I love doing that kind of thing to see, because I feel like when it does, this is so exciting for me to meet kids who, or people who, when they were kids, were watching that stuff, because it was, I'm describing, like dozens of us were working together to make those shows. And it is so satisfying to meet people that were watching them, because when I was a kid, I was doing the same thing, wondering, like, what was it like?
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like a job, you know, it's like a job. And we definitely would have, you know, kind of, you know, frustrating meetings like anybody else has at work. But at the end of it, like, oh, you're just talking about this like beautiful thing that you're making at the end is really satisfying.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
That is awesome. Do you still keep in touch with anyone from your work with Cartoon Pizza Sesame Workshop?
Yeah, no, completely. Jonathan Royce is on my team at Holler. He's working on one of the shows that we're producing. I'm still really close with Mike Foran, who sat next to me, and Prentice Rollins, and I spoke to Fariba last year, and Miguel, and I'm still very close with Matt Peters, and Jim Jenkins and I have been talking a lot over the last few years. It's been really nice to catch up with Jim again. I saw him in New York last year, and just before COVID, I guess I saw Jim, but I see him now on Facebook, which is great. But it's nice because it's actually kind of a fraternity. Like everybody that was part of Jumbo and Cartoon Pizza is like a big extended family, and I miss every one of them every day.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Definitely. And speaking of Sesame Workshop, we did well, by the time this goes up, we can talk about it, but we had someone else from Sesame Workshop on recently who did some work for Sesame, Lewis Henry Mitchell.
Yeah.
Oh, me and Lewis worked on Daria together. I love Lewis so much. He's the nicest guy in the world.
Oh, for sure. He
good.
was, yeah, that was a really fun interview to do.
I bet he's got great stories.
Oh yeah,
He
he had a ton of great stories. So now, in addition to your work with animated series, you mentioned earlier you've worked on a ton of different cereal commercials. What is it like getting to work on those?
It's funny because the process of making a commercial is so different from the process of making a show, where a show is an assembly line. There's somebody, it's more like a river where everybody has their one little part, and you get to do your little part on that like river line. And it's more like, you know, picture a triangle, and the show is the thing that everybody is aiming for. but it's the inverse for a commercial where it's like 30 seconds of a commercial has everybody talking about that 30 seconds. Like every aspect of it is examined by a team of people.
Goodness.
It's so intense.
Nice.
Oh my God. And what would happen is you'd do a storyboard, and then you'd have to pitch like 3 or 4 different approaches to a problem. And then they would pick the one that the creative director liked the most, and or the account people, and then that's presented to the client, and then the client has to decide, well, I don't like that one, and then you got to go back and then do it again, and then you would make kind of a test commercial where we had, for every commercial that we made, we would do like a practice one that was slightly animated, more like kind of puppeting. And it was the very early days of After Effects and, Animate or Flash Animate. And so they were kind of built like that. And then we would fly to the Midwest, go to a kind of little office in a like kind of office park, and kids would come in, and you would watch kids behind a 2-way mirror watch these practice commercials. And then you would ask questions of these kids to understand, like, oh, are they understanding what we're trying to sell them? And I remember the first one that I went to was so interesting because the account people in advertising spoke completely differently than other human beings. They would speak in ad speak. And so I called this account person and said, well, how did the testing go for my first Lucky Charms commercial? And she said, the key message playback was strong. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Did the kids like it? Did they like the commercial? Well, there was a break in the narrative thread. What do you mean? Well, there's a break in the narrative thread that we'll have to adjust, but the key message playback was strong. I was like, oh my God, can you please speak English? What are you saying? Well, in the narrative thread, there's a break that the consumers, the children, the consumers are not connecting the end piece with the front piece. And it was like, what do you mean? Where's this break? Well, like at the 26-second mark. So when the joke is at the joke, the kids didn't get the joke. Yes, no, the kids didn't get the joke. So, why didn't you just say that? And so it was like 10 years of trying to figure out what they meant sometimes by the market speak that they spoke. We were in eventually I got a partner, Manny Galan, and we both were running virtually the department. And he was, give me one sec, guys. I just gotta, sorry guys, I'll be right back.
No worries.
Yep, no worries.
We were in a Cocoa Puffs commercial meeting and a conference call meeting, and the client said, we really don't want to focus on the tertiary benefit. We really want to detonate the terminal benefit. And it was like, we really couldn't understand what this guy was saying at all. And it turned out that he just wanted us to focus on the fact that the milk turns chocolatey.
Yeah.
And he could have just said that, but he was like, how do we detonate the tertiary benefit? It's like, oh boy. So that was what was different, I think, about series and animation, but rather series work and commercial work. But we treated those characters as if they were characters. Like we treated them like they were little shows, you know? So apart from that kind of, let's say, necessary evil of the business of working through that kind of language barrier, the work was super, super fun. And General Mills, I can't say enough about what a fun company they were to work for. I really loved them, and I got to really know Minnesota and Minneapolis over going out there for 10 years. And then toy commercials for a couple of years were pretty wild up at Hasbro. We did a lot of My Little Pony commercials and Littlest Pet Shop commercials. And but then I went back to General Mills and did a lot of all their movie tie-in commercials. So like when they did a Trolls commercial or like DC Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
They were doing comics in the boxes, if you remember those.
Yes.
The commercials for those. And then we recently did a commercial, well, not recently, about now almost 4 years ago, the Geico McGruff, the crime dog, when you talk baby talk to dogs. And
I think I might have seen that.
yeah, that one it's like the detective's office and McGruff the crime dog is like, Chief, we got an important case here. And they're like, yeah, well, you can play that clip is a good one. That was me and Mike Foran and Jonathan Royce animated that. All three of us worked on Doug, and so that's kind of interesting that all three of us worked on that commercial. And so it was pretty fun. And then I also did a web series for the toy Squinkies, which was pretty fun.
I know about Squinkies.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
And then also did a web series for, I don't know if you guys remember Tennessee Tuxedo at all.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I think so, yeah.
It was
I think that was before our times, but I remember.
It was an animated show from the 60s. It was virtually before my time too. And it was sponsored by General Mills. They own that show. Wow. And they own the TV rights to it. So DreamWorks had the other parcel of rights. And I directed an animated short that was like a pilot that's now like it was kind of an early web series. So lots of cool, I can give you guys cool clips and stuff for the show to even, play over things, but
yeah.
Nice.
Cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah, awesome. So currently you're a creative director for an agency called Danger Pigeon Studios. How did that begin for you?
Well, what's interesting is that's my previous role, and that right now I'm the head of studio for Holler. And so been doing that for about 3 years. Danger Pigeon is a company that I own with Amy Giles, the writer, and that studio produced the Frank Zappa hologram tour, produced lots of General Mills commercials, and we ran that studio out of my house, which was great. Like pre-pandemic, we kind of ran it out of this room, and we produced a dozen national TV commercials, and it was really, really exciting. And the Lillian Tordo's opposite show for Sesame Workshop is a Danger Pigeon production. But then in 2019, I started working for Holler, which was a sticker messaging company. Now we are just grown into an IP animation company, and
that's awesome.
We're in Venmo. You probably saw the stickers in Venmo if you Venmoed anybody, and there were stickers that was up. And but now we're doing we just did 160 web shorts this year. We're really excited.
Wow.
And we're kind of developing a whole slate of different shows that are aimed at a Gen Z audience, but we're also under wraps. We're developing 2 preschool series that are not public yet. But again, this is the first time I've even mentioned them.
That's really nice. Yeah, definitely love to check those out once they're out there. So now some of your work with Danger Pigeon includes creating campaigns for companies such as General Mills, which you mentioned earlier and Activision. What were those like?
So we did, if you guys remember, a couple of years ago there was a in cereal boxes Skylanders Battlecast card.
Yeah, I remember something about it.
Yeah.
What was really cool was we were able to, and you can kind of roll that commercial too over this dialogue, that we took the Griffin character, like the main I forget the name of the character right now, but he's one of the Skylanders, and we got the rig from the game and converted it into an animatable character. We had it land on a minivan, and a couple were coming home with their kids from shopping, and the boy pulls out his Skylanders Battlecast, goes to his phone, activates the phone, and then this giant griffin like lands on the top of the car. And it was really fun because obviously that day the griffin wasn't real. We had to animate him, but we kept having I was sitting in such a way where I was pushing the car so that it would look like the car like that there was like an impact, on when we animated the character. And it's really cool to get to learn how to that was probably the first shoot that I was on that had a camera on the hood of the car, and we were driving up like a little cul-de-sac with a trailer, kind of backing the trailer up as the car was driving. So that was pretty cool. Like getting to learn live action in commercials over the last 20 years was pretty cool. But the Frank Zappa hologram tour was just off the hook crazy. Where's my box? I've got a really cool thing that I think I can show here. So Frank Zappa was, kind of a legendary guitarist, and we brought him to life as a hologram.
That's awesome.
This doll was 6 foot tall.
Wow.
On the actual, and this is all hand painted. If you can see this,
Nice.
Hey, how are you?
And also, yes, this is Matt, one of our other co-hosts.
There he is. Hey,
Hey, Matt, how are you doing, man?
Hello,
Hi.
Matt. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm here with Frank. I'm here with Frank Zappa. Boy Frank Zappa.
That's awesome.
And his date for the day, Dynamo Hum.
Oh my God.
Who was based the song is Tina Turner was the original backup singer, but we couldn't get the rights for her. We made these dolls. These were stop motion characters that we ended up creating holograms of, and we're live on stage. It was amazing to see these characters performing on stage. Was really thrilling, and it took us a year and a half to do it, to build the whole concert. Us and another animation company. This was Danger Pigeon built this production, and with Fan Tunes out in California.
So we actually have a surprise for you.
We have a gift for you.
While we're waiting for our surprise, so could you share like any projects you are working on now?
Yeah, so we are working on a puppet show with Brian Hames and Leslie Carrera Rudolph.
Oh,
Nice! Awesome.
Very talented
Nice.
puppets.
And so we're really excited about that, and we're working on an animated preschool show, and we're recording next Friday. We're really excited. Roy Wood Jr. is going to be the dad, and Yetide Badaki from American Gods and This Is Us is going to be the mom. So we're really excited about that.
Oh, nice. All right. Anyway, that's out whenever Jakey gets his face cam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll take a
we're
picture
keeping
as
I'm
soon
so
as he
curious.
comes back.
I'm nervous that there's a surprise. I'm not sure what.
Here's the thing. Think about this. We never surprise
Ah!
anything. Look!
Bobby, what are you
There it
doing, Bob? I
There's our
kinda thought
surprise.
this might be the
There's your
surprise.
surprise.
Yeah, that's your surprise.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Bobby,
There it is.
how you doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, DJ Bob. There he
Yes.
The man, the legend.
is.
Who was a guest on our podcast was it last year? Yeah, last
Almost
year.
a year ago.
Sorry, I'm
Memories
hijacking your interview.
That is okay. That
We're
is
about to wrap
completely
up
fine.
anyway.
Yeah, we're about to wrap up anyway because Pat's got to run. But yeah, how you doing, Bob?
King
Bobby.
Squid, do you have a puppet?
He's always been there. He's always. Oh, you know why? Because we don't do video conference.
But I've never seen him.
No, he's
Right.
always on the back fence there. He was like sits there.
Is that like a whatnot? Like we're gonna
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Kind
his
of.
name is Larry, and
Larry.
he talks like this. This is Larry. Hello.
That was episode 21, by the way, last year.
Yeah, my puppet's name is just Puppet Chris. He
And
it's
I'm
just
back.
my
Hey,
normal
hey, it's
voice.
Bob.
Yes. Yes, and
Wow.
again, and as I mentioned earlier, me and Bob interviewed Pat on the DJ Bob show a couple years ago.
did.
And it's my
wow.
puppet friend of mine,
I
Bean.
want to go back. I want to say it was this year because if you look at it, it says episode 21 and it came
And
out
I
this
looked
year.
it up. You were on like 4 times that year, Pat.
I want a
Oh, wow.
5-time jacket.
Oh, wow.
I totally want a 5-time jacket.
Yeah.
We don't
You
have
know,
a budget.
right? Right?
You
Like
guys have
Saturday Night
budget
Live,
for
I
that.
need a like 5-timers club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Noel, I think Noel's the only other one that gets a jacket, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Oh.
So what do you think of these guys? Did I teach them well?
But you guys did great. This was so much fun. You guys did a really
Thank you.
great show. You did it was super, comfortable, but you were also prepared with great questions and
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
really
thank you,
great
thank you.
conversation. And thank you for letting me share stuff. That was really kind of fun. And thank you for
Yeah.
letting me bring Larry.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very nice to
Sorry.
meet you.
Hey,
Very
Larry.
nice to meet you. Nice to meet you on the
Hello,
public
Larry.
too. Nobody pointed them out.
Yes. If people would like to contact you, where can people
Where
find
can
you?
people find you?
Oh, me, Pat at
Yeah.
Danger Pigeon Still. Go to Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm the Pat
Yeah.
Giles.
Yes.
Instagram.
that
Yeah,
is right.
sure, it's a
And,
question
I'll
mark.
be in the description down
and
below as well.
Danger
Bixby
Pigeon
down
on
below.
YouTube and or Holler Studios on YouTube.
Definitely.
Nice.
will be
And
down
your
in the
social media
description below.
description down below.
Yes.
I'm gonna paraphrase this because it's super long.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I understand.
So, since this podcast is about nostalgia, how would you define the word nostalgia and what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
It means very warm memories of pop culture that I grew up with. And I love pop culture that I grew up with. And then I love that I was able to make pop culture that other people grew up with. And so
Exactly.
for me, I just love, it's happy memories.
There you
Yeah,
go.
For
I
sure.
love that. Well, Pat, oh my gosh, thank you so much. It has
Thank
been
you.
a
You definitely have
pleasure.
to
It has
come back
been
on.
a blast catching up with you.
Yep. Yes.
Guys,
Keep up great work and see what's next for you.
Yes, definitely. And since we mentioned it earlier, at the time of taping, it'll have already been on there, but PB&J Otter will be streaming on Disney Plus October 19th. So definitely check that out.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're all excited for that. Same with Bear.
Same
Do
with
the
Bear.
noodle dance. Yeah.
Yes.
I
See
don't
you
know.
guys.
I don't know.
Cheers, everybody. Love
Yeah,
you,
love
Bob.
it.
See you guys. Bye.
Yes,
Bye,
keep in
guys.
touch,
Yeah.
Pat. Keep in touch, Pat. I'll let you know when this goes up. That
We
was
love
Goodbye to you folks
Amazing.
too. Yep.
yes. Goodbye to
Yeah,
everyone.
for sure.
Remember,
Goodbye,
that
everybody. You're worth it.
to
You
stay
want to stay
nostalgic.
nostalgic.
You're
Sure.
worth it.
And
Stay
always-
nostalgic, keep nostalgia alive.
Keep nostalgia
You're
alive.
worth it.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. See you next time on another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Be sure to follow us on social media and stream us wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember that you are worth it and to always stay nostalgic. Bye-bye.
Greetings, my name's Matt Bingel. I'm one of the co-hosts at Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. What you just heard, or watched if you're watching the video version, was Wyatt's final episode with the podcast. For those who are unaware, On October 24th, a week after we taped the episode you just saw, we had to let Wyatt go, for reasons we'd rather not disclose. However, Jakey, Chris, Matthew, and I will continue to bring you wonderful interviews and chats going forward. If you're watching the video version on our YouTube page, you may notice our logo on the screen. This is the last episode to feature this logo, which we have used since almost day one. We're going through a bit of a transformation here at Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. The format will stay the same, however, we are getting a new look to coincide with this new era. This includes a new logo, new thumbnails, yes, this does include new thumbnails for old episodes too, and a new intro and outro with new music. And so with this, our logo and Wyatt flash away into history. Fear not, however, as one era ends, another one begins. And so, starting with episode 78, a new era begins. The best is yet to come.